featuring Daphne Johnston from the Alabama Respite Ministry. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Daphne. After working 15 years as an executive director in senior living administration, Daphne was happy to step into the nonprofit world of the faith community. She was asked to develop a volunteer model to support families for living with dementia in Montgomery, Alabama. So she learned quickly that a volunteer ministry could galvanize a community and change the culture of how we live among our friends with dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Through Respite Ministry, Daphne has become an advocate for those families living with memory loss. Her personal mission is to help families, clergy, and professionals better understand that trained volunteers are an immediate answer for combating the isolation of Alzheimer's disease. Daphne is also the founder and director of the Respite for All Foundation, which was founded to advance the volunteer-driven respite model to improve quality of life for people who have memory loss due to dementia, while offering peace of mind and respite to caregivers. The foundation model of care is based on partnerships with faith communities that provide free space and a network of volunteers who offer community and companionship along with evidence-based activities that benefit the individuals served, their caregivers, and the volunteers. While the foundation is rooted in faith-based communities, they serve everyone without regard to a religious affiliation. The foundation provides the necessary resources and training to inspire and sustain new volunteer respite communities across the country. On a personal note, it was about 4 years ago that I was tuned into an Arch Respite webinar, and Daphne was the lead speaker. And after hearing her incredibly empowering story, I called her, and because I was so interested in working to build the faith community model in New York. And Daphne agreed to come to New York, and she was the keynote speaker at our 2016 annual conference. And Daphne and I have been fast friends ever since. I was fortunate to have the opportunity to visit Daphne's respite program in Montgomery and receive the wonderful hospitality of the people who so passionately serve that community. So I've watched Daphne over the years spread her enthusiasm across the country and across the world. She's become famous in the realm of caregiving and respite, and it is my joy and honor to share with you my friend, Daphne Johnston. Take it away, Daphne.
Yay, great. Wow, that was a lot of words. So I'm just going to jump in with some stories because that was a very long introduction. Doris, that was so sweet. Thank you. Doris asked me to just share with you briefly. Our story was so big and it was so powerful, and it was too much to just keep in Montgomery, Alabama. So we wanted to share it with the whole world. So I published a book this summer. And Doris, did you want to say something about the coalition?
Well, only that the coalition is providing a copy of your book free of charge to anyone who wants it, who's on this webinar. And I will give them the opportunity to just tell me who they are and what their address is after in another email.
Right.
But it's an awesome book because I did read it, so it's worth having.
Right, that's great. So briefly, I came from the assisted living world, like she said, and was asked by my minister here in the First United Methodist Church to start a dementia ministry. And I didn't really know what that looked like. I didn't really know anything about ministry. And once I began researching that local churches all over the Southeast, there were 3 programs in particular that had volunteer respite ministries. And there was one that I looked at that, all they did was play bingo for like 3 hours. They didn't have a paid director. They were sweet people and they were great. But I thought, I don't want to play bingo for 3 hours. I got to Lawrenceville, Georgia and Fairhope, Alabama, and I saw the light. I saw where volunteers had mixed together with our friends living with Alzheimer's and dementia. And you couldn't really tell who was who. They had some different name tags on, and I'm going to get to that in some smocks. But for the most part, it was a community coming together in the church to serve challenged people. Well, our story began with 14 volunteers and 2 participants. I had marketed for, I don't know how long, this volunteer ministry, probably 3 months, and I only had 14 volunteers show up to the first meeting. But they blew it up. We grew and grew and grew. And I wanted to open with this story. I'll never forget Doris inviting me to come to New York. And when I told them in that ballroom that we started with 2 people with Alzheimer's and 14 volunteers. And now today we have over 120 volunteers. When we closed for COVID, we had 30 people coming a day living with Alzheimer's and dementia. 30 a day with 1 paid director. 15 volunteers a day, almost 1 volunteer per 2 people. We just ran out of space. It was neighbor helping neighbor. We didn't need medical training. We didn't need the brain science of everything. We just learned how to give common sense help to our neighbor. So when Doris asked me to come up to New York, I shared our story, and there were a lot of tears in that ballroom. But in the way back, I'll never forget a lady raising her hand, and she said, I need you to know that I might not be able to do this. I'm in a government job. I'm in a small church. I might not be able to do what you're talking about, but I need you to know that I needed to hear this story today. She just had tears coming out of her eyes, and she said, I needed to know that there's goodness in this world and that this is possible. So even if you can't replicate what I've got a great big church that's behind me. So a lot of you might be in smaller churches. Just listen today. I want to share some tips how you can enhance your own ministry, how you can expand, but just keep an open mind to, I just needed to hear a good story today. We all need a good story. So anyway, I'm going to move on to our PowerPoint. Our share screen is on. Is that right? Okay. I'll just
There we go.
We're going to have time for some questions and answers at the end. But when y'all go back on the recording, if y'all would like to email me, call me, whatever, look me up on our website. Here it is, respiteforall.org. I want to explain this real quick. We have our Respite Ministry, which is our cross over here to the right. And do y'all know that that cross was painted by 4 people living with Alzheimer's with cotton balls? That was one of the first art projects we ever did. And they talked for like an hour just blotting paint. And that's what they came up with. It became our logo. And then the Respite for All Foundation is what we've started to help spread this volunteer model. So the 2 of us are putting this on. So as I said, we had 30 come in a day, 15, 20 volunteers, and that 1 paid director, almost 50, 55 folks. All of that started from this room, this one room. I don't know if you can see all the coffee stains in there, and you can tell that it's in the basement because we had no daylight. But if any of you are thinking about starting a ministry or an Alzheimer's ministry at that, don't worry about your space. I'm telling you, God's going to provide the space. If you've got something that is alive, it is going to grow. And I was just handed the corner basement room. You just have to begin, right? You just got to get your mind going, and you just have to start because the rest of it is going to work out. So here is what we left in COVID in March. Just full of people, all different persuasions, gay, straight, black, white, you name it. We've got Buddhists, we've got atheists, we've got the good Baptist in the South. We want everybody. We don't want anything to be a barrier because everybody is living with some sort of challenge. In dementia and Alzheimer's, it doesn't matter who you are. It's just out there. You can kind of get an idea. We made it out of the basement. You can see me circling around this picture right here. This was just 3 dancers we had coming in to do yoga with us, but this was the crowd that we left, just from 2 people. I want to give you just a brief example of our theory. And I really think this makes a difference. If any of you are in ministry, you're going to know what I'm talking about. Those ministries that take off, and those programs that take off, is when you can train your volunteers to come alongside somebody and not do ministry to someone. You know, a lot of times you can get volunteers to come in and think they're doing something for someone, to someone. But in the respite world, we wanted to start with these things that we fill volunteers with and that we fill our person living with dementia with. In our training, we go over this theory. This is by Dr. Alan Power and his book, Dementia Beyond Drugs. And instead of them coming to a daycare service, right, we wanted to build activities that had just plenty of engagement, plenty of things for them to take part in. And that one of the main things was we wanted them to be able to be part of service projects. So with that in mind, look at these 7 things: identity, connection, security, autonomy, just being able to give a little bit of control, meaning, growth, and joy. So I'm asking you right now, if you're running a program or a ministry, are you providing these things for your person? Or are you in essence just babysitting? Because there's just a big difference. If you're providing an outlet for someone to thrive, living with the challenges or living with the attributes that they still have, that's the thing that's going to take off. So I wanted that to stick with you guys. So we view our program, and I just realized I haven't even given y'all the logistics. We meet Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we have got it full of art, music, service projects, yoga, exercise, brain exercise. We just keep it moving all the time. So we want that day to be so full that they go home just slap worn out. Here's a project where we potted, I think it was 30 or 40 pots. This was in the beginning, 30 or 40 pots to send to the nursing home. We wanted to find ways to include our participants living with dementia. They're the pillars of our community. How can we do activities and projects where they're involved, where they're still helping someone else instead of everyone doing for them? Does that make sense? Sharon, I'm going to ask you one quick question. Am I on the screen? Do I need to be on the screen, or is it just the PowerPoint?
You are on the screen.
I'm on the screen. Okay, I just can't see it. Okay, keeping on moving. What have you got to offer in your programs right now that provide meaning and purpose? We don't like to say volunteers in our program right now when we're in our rooms. We're calling ourselves guides right now. We're looking for that great term that doesn't really suggest that we've got more to give you than you've got to give us. So how can we word that? When I'm talking to you guys, I'm saying volunteers because that's what we understand, but we want to get a word that describes how can we help support you? How can we help you live your best? Because you guys are helping us just as well, right? So right now we're using guides. We want to provide an environment of autonomy, and we want to blur the lines of distinction. And by that I mean, we don't want anybody to feel different when they get to our program. One of the best stories, and I think Doris and Sharon heard this one in New York, but one of the best stories I'll ever have, one of the greatest things to ever happen to us when I saw those other 2 programs. One program had green smocks for the volunteers, maybe a different color t-shirt for them. One program had purple name tags for the participants and green name tags for the volunteers. And you know, that's okay if you needed to have a quick glance across the room. But if you're 55 with early onset, if you're 70 and you're a retired professional in the community, chances are, I bet you don't want to be singled out as somebody that's living with a challenge. So we decided to make all of our name tags the very same. Just first names, big black and white, got a magnetic thing that goes, and everybody has got the same name. One day I had a lady that was living with dementia, and she drove into the program, and she spent the day with us, and I could tell she did not need to be driving at all. But she was there, she spent the day with us, and her phrase at the end of the day was, "Damn, this just reminds me so much of AA." And I thought, what in the world are you talking about, lady? She looked at the door and she looked at everybody and she just said, nobody knows anybody's last name. And you guys are just meeting us where we are. Now, is that not so powerful? Nobody knows a last name and we're just meeting each other where we are. I want you guys to think about your ministries right now. Are you singling out your people? Does it matter? Do you really have to do that? I'm telling you, when that wife brings a man in for the first time and is looking at your program, when she sees that everybody is the same, it's a big selling point. I highly encourage you to find a way to level the field. It's a great thing. Moving on down, as I said, that we were working on service projects and things where we could build purpose in our people. I just wanted to share a couple of those and give you some ideas. We did a dog food drive last fall, and volunteers, the church, anybody that wanted to drop off dog food and cat food. We've got a local Meals on Wheels program where, our drivers deliver through the Aging Consortium meals, but what they found was they were giving some of their food to their animals, just trying to keep everybody afloat. So for Christmas, I think we bagged over 250 pints of dog food. But it was all of our participants who were bagging it. Our volunteers created the opportunity for them to still be useful. So where are you creating space for your people living with challenges to still be in the community, to still be useful? I tell you what, we've added it and we've done it 2 years in a row. Families loved it. We got more and more dog food and cat food as time went on. So I encourage you to steal that idea if you would like. You guys probably need blizzard relief. I know down here in the South, we've got hurricane relief, but we packed 215 flood kits this day. And here again, it was all of our people living with Alzheimer's and dementia. How did we create a space where they could help their community? What does it look to come alongside someone? As we mentioned in the beginning, just see Harry over there. He's a retired civil engineer. My guy Jimmy, right here with the white hat, cannot communicate at all. But we found a way with PVC pipes to build and build and build. And Jimmy would hold the pipes who couldn't communicate. Harry would add the joints. But if it was something that was along the adult line of things to do, it was constructive, it was teamwork, and you really didn't have to use words. How are you creating things in your ministries and in your programs where verbal communication doesn't have to be? How are you creating that space? I'm going to cut away in just a minute. I've got a great handout. I would love for us to go through just tips on how we can expand and build the ministries and the mindsets. So don't let me forget the handout, guys. But moving on down, I just wanted to tell one other quick story. This was our volunteer BB on the left, and this was our participant Eileen on the right. Eileen had Lewy body dementia. She could barely communicate as well. BB had just come into the program. Her husband had died. She was suffering from grief. And she said, please just put me with someone that I won't have a lot of pressure with. And I said, okay, you know what? You just go hang out with Eileen for the day. Well, they became such fast friends. BB began coming to our ministry every week. She had never volunteered before, but she was called by Eileen to be, with us weekly. So as time goes on, we get around to Thanksgiving, and I get a call from BB, the volunteer, and she says, Daphne, and she's crying, and it was so sad, and I just knew something had happened to Eileen, and she said, I just got a call from Eileen's husband and her son and her daughter. Daughter's coming in from New York, son's coming in from California. And they have invited me to their Thanksgiving dinner. Is it legal for a volunteer to go to Thanksgiving dinner? She was so moved that she got to come to the table, that she was included in someone's family dinner. And so I just share this story with you guys because what an inspiring story it is when you don't know who the volunteer is. Because you see, in Eileen's state of mind, 8 years living in Lewy body dementia, can't communicate, her life changed the course of BB's life. Her life and her presence changed BB. So here again, where are you creating that space for your people and your ministries and your programs to change the life of the people around them? And then we have to learn to tell that story. I think that's what sets my respite ministry apart, is we tell the stories wherever we go. So if you see these miracles happening in these relationships, and you guys are just taking care of your 5 people and you're changing their life, but you're not sharing it with the greater community somehow, that's what we got to work on today, okay? So I'll leave you with this one good slide. Had you rather be taken care of the people on the left or the people on the right? What I love to tell people about our volunteer program is we are full of retired coaches, retired bankers, retired postmen, retired waitresses, retired whoever. Somehow along the way, they've been affected, they've lived with someone in their family with Alzheimer's and dementia, and they want to give back. How are we creating the space for them to give back, right? You don't want to go sit in a jerry chair all day down at the local community center. You don't want somebody feeding you cookies from Walmart with a green smock on. You want to be with the guys. You want to be talking about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And yes, we talk about it in our church. It's okay. They're World War II vets. They love it. They eat it up. I'll tell you a quick story on that line. I had one group coming in from another church, and I had some of the symphony members there playing violins. It was a string quartet, and they were closing with Amazing Grace. And they, it was beautiful. It was fine. But this other church group had come in and they said, "Oh, that's so sweet. Your people can still hum Amazing Grace." And I thought, oh, guys, this is not what respite is about. We don't sit around and hum. So I ran up to the whiteboard. I wrote down 20 things you think of when you think of a grand hotel. We love to do 20 things on a whiteboard, 20 things in a courtroom, 20 things you find at the grocery store, 20 things that can apply to everybody's life, right? So 20 things found in a hotel. Well, all of a sudden, you see these hands going up and everybody's saying flowers and bellmen and good food and swimming pool, women. Oh man, we had drinks coming out the wazoo. Everybody is just popping. And I had one veteran that had not spoken in 3 months. Rarely did he speak. He had a big vet hat on from Korea. And all of a sudden you hear Wayne just pipe up and he says, I say, "You know what, Wayne, what would you find in a grand hotel?" And he said, "Mirrors on the ceiling." And everybody just died out laughing. You just got to embrace those kinds of moments. And if you guys work with dementia, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So embrace those moments, create the space for people to share and help one another. So I'm going to move on down to a handout I put together for you guys. Doris and Sharon have got it, and they can email it out if you would like. But I'm going to share the screen right now. Okay. These are just tips that I have put together over the years. You know what? I'm going to shrink it. Hang on, never mind. I want to show you something first. The first tip was don't reinvent the wheel. When I got really serious about spreading this volunteer model around the country, I got busy researching successful programs that I could find around the country. I would Google the biggest Alzheimer's Day Center, Alzheimer's Living Centers. I wanted to find things that still had the same language I used, same concepts, the same people they were serving. And I would go to their annual reports, and I would go to their monthly newsletters, and I would just look and see how they laid things out, how they told stories, how they shared their ministry and their programs. So I want to share with you, this just got finalized last night. This is the very first annual report I have done for our Respite Foundation. And I just pulled all the pictures off my 18 programs. They're all over the Southeast. I've got one in Washington, one close to Tampa. I pulled their pictures off their Facebook pages and added blurbs. But I wanted you to see, I didn't have a background in marketing. I did not have a background in being able to create something like this. But I learned that I found a graphic artist that cost $50 an hour. And when I had done the legwork to research how I wanted a publication to look, I could write. I could write all these different things just in blurbs. So we've put this together to send to the 1,000 members of our families, our volunteers' families. Hopefully they'll share, but these are all the different programs that our Respite Ministry runs, and I'll be more than happy to share that with you as well, to give it to Doris to send out to you guys. I just wanted y'all to take note. I thought this was one of the most creative things I'd seen. You know, during COVID, we're all recreating and trying to figure out how to do our ministry and how to stay vital in the community. I wanted y'all to take notice. You can see my arrow moving. Here is a minivan or an SUV. One of the respite directors put ice cream cones all over her car. She packed her back seat with 2 coolers full of ice cream sandwiches, and she had about 10 volunteers follow in their separate cars with their mask, and she delivered about 25 ice cream sandwiches from a homemade ice cream truck to all the respite participants. We have been so creative trying to find ways to reach out, because you guys know as well as I do that COVID has hit Alzheimer's and dementia families just something awful. They're isolated in the beginning, but now it's like it's doubled down. So we've got porch singings, high school parades where mascots came out. I had one program in Savannah. They purchased 40 electric picture frames that did not need Wi-Fi. All it needed was a jump drive. And that director went back to her house and she created content such as exercise, singing, whiteboard material that they would normally do through the day. And her volunteers delivered the jump drives to all 25 of her participants there in Savannah. Amazing. Who could come up with that? We had parades all over the place, celebrations in parking lots, drive-by birthdays. I had one group down here that had 10 volunteers that went out to sing in the rain. They brought their person living with dementia out on the porch, and they sang in the rain from the yard. I know you guys are in New York, and the weather's awful right now, but I sure do hope this just strikes something creative in you guys. I want y'all to see the mosaic up here. The respite director created that with her 8 people on her Zoom support group. They just had a conversation about where stones should be placed, where the marbles should go. She said it took up an hour and a half, where those Zoom calls usually used to take 20 minutes, but everybody got so involved they wanted to be part of the mosaic. It was amazing. This is a group that got a grant for all the Alzheimer's cats. And this was a group that volunteers take out activity boxes. There's 25 or 30 boxes delivered every week with activities in there. This group does charge a small fee. I think they charge $20 for the month to help recover some of their costs. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys, because 8 years ago when I started this ministry, I had no idea how to put a publication together. I just want y'all to be aware that you can do it too. I think this is going to cost me $300 working with my graphic artist. So tell your story, put the pictures together, get quotes from your family members, put them in books, put them in a newsletter, put them on your Facebook page. Share your story. You got to tell it. All right, last thing, and now we're going to go over the Now we'll go over the worksheet. Okay. Just wanted to show y'all that newsletter first because it really dovetailed into do not reinvent the wheel. Look all around the country. You've got everything in your fingertips with Google. Look it up, see what you like, help get somebody to help you make it. Capture addresses. This is what I have to tell all of my ministries because when somebody makes a $10 donation, somebody makes a $25 donation, you better find a way or find a volunteer to capture those addresses because those are the people that are going to give again. When you get your newsletter ready to send out, you want to have that big list of things to hand out. I've been asked 1,000 times over 8 years, how did you grow your volunteer pool so large? Now, this is dementia. This is considered, probably hard care, but it's really not. How did you grow those volunteers? I can't get volunteers to come and do this. I can't get them to come do this. Well, let me tell you, when I would go out and speak to literary clubs, civics clubs, Kiwanis, Rotary, I don't know if you guys have those up there. When I would go speak, I would say, just call, find out when the next volunteer training is, come by, see the pace of things. We have a concept that we have got a pool of volunteers. I knew that as the director, I could probably handle 5 to 8 people by myself with 1 or 2 volunteers, right? But I didn't want to box those volunteers coming on board. I didn't want to box them into, okay, you've got to commit to every single Tuesday. You've got to go through all this hard process. You've got to do X, Y, Z, and I need to know a phone call ahead of time, and you need to find your substitute before this happens. You've got a crazy amount of baby boomers out there that are willing and wanting to help. But how can you make it easy for them to participate? So we came up with a pool of volunteers. And we began our ministry 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 to 2. The volunteers, I would email out 2 weeks prior to the date. Let's say we started July the 15th. I would send something out July the 1st, and I would say, okay, guys, there's 15 of y'all in this pool. Who all can work on Tuesday the 15th? 2 weeks ahead of time. So then I could see if I needed to get extra help. In Alabama, I don't know about you guys in New York, we don't have any state regs on adult day programs. I know we've got a program that started in Florida. They do have a lot of regulations in Florida. You guys might. But because this is a social model, we do not pass medicines. It's only from 10 to 2, so we don't have to have an RN nurse. We don't even have to have an LPN because we don't pass medicine and give medical care. This is a social model. I knew how many people, we could get by with if we were short or if we had too many. So we did a pool. People just emailed me back and it was on one link. I made it so easy for them to say, yes, I'll give it a try on July the 15th. Well, once they get in the system, they were so caught up in it and they were so moved by what they were doing. Many of them, probably 80%, have dedicated their days, every other week or every Tuesday, so it all kind of ironed out. Make it easy in the beginning for people to help you. Don't throw the book at them before they even start. All right, the second thing I wanted to highlight was the volunteer challenge. By the time we got up to 30 volunteers, I had done 2 trainings, and we had a lightning bolt brainstorm. I wanted on the next volunteer training for them to recruit their best friends. If I've got Elizabeth, who is great, and I've got Cindy, who's a city councilman's wife, I need to get their friends involved, right? So I put out a big challenge for everybody involved to bring 1 friend to the next training. Well, I had 30 volunteers, and do you know that every single one of those volunteers, every single one of them brought somebody. We doubled our volunteer pool in 1 day. We went from 30 to 60 because all that came to the training were hooked. They were hooked on a flexible schedule. They were hooked on a non-medical model, and they were hooked on our people. Use the people you have. Get them to recruit their friends. Y'all can see the rest of these. I've got a couple I highlighted, but one thing I always want you to remember, a senior pastor of ours that was so good, he just preached to our church staff all the time. Never get on to your people. Never get on to your people. You know, when you're working with a volunteer pool, you're always going to have mistakes. But find a way to use humor. Find a way to use just not to make an example of them, but to pull them off aside in the hallway and say, George, you know, when you were talking to Larry, one way it could have been better. Next time, maybe you could try this. Do you see the language difference as you should have done this and calling him out in front of a whole big group? What's your body language? How are you approaching your volunteers? Are you coaching them up? Are you giving them tips to make their experience better? I've got volunteers that have been here 8 years and they still need a little coaching. And they sure love to coach me around too. So it goes both ways. But I encourage you, use humor, use inspiration. Don't get on to your people. Just rolling on down, I'll quickly cover over these. I cannot express to you enough, if you're in a ministry and you want to grow it, seek a community mentor. I cannot express to you enough how many businessmen and businesswomen that I've got involved in the Respite Ministry that are not on a board, that are not a volunteer. But when they see me in the community and they say, golly, you got a great thing going, I want to help you, but I can't. I've got this, this, and this. I say, you know what? Could I just call on you? If I ever got in a jam, if you're a banker, could I call on you for contacts? If you're a business guy, could I call on you to help me structure some policy? If you're a teacher, could I call on you to speak at maybe one of your local literary clubs? Find a way to use the people that want to help. It doesn't have to be a board slot. It doesn't have to be an official slot. But the more people you bring to your ministry, the better off you're going to be. Find the mentors and they want to help. Ask them if you can go get a cup of coffee and just say, I've got this budget and I'm looking to expand, but I just need some ideas. I would love to hear what you've got. You will be amazed at what people want to share with you. And they'll, more than likely help you make it happen. Skipping on down, find a way to make ministry free. This is probably one of the best success stories I will ever be able to share. But somewhere along the way, that maybe first or second year, we had a couple that I knew they had no money because the daughter was in the support group. They had gone bankrupt. It was a long story, but there was really no resources. And so when this family came to me and said, the spouse came to me and said, my wife really needs to be in your program, I didn't even tell them that there was a charge. So we go from 10 to 2, and at that time we charged $30 a day, $7 an hour. Now we charge $40 a day, $10 an hour. I didn't even tell them there was a fee. A third of our participants are on scholarships. If they can't afford it, we don't have formal paperwork. If they can't pay half of it, then we just simply say, you know what, do you think you could cover your food cost? And if they can pay $5 a day. But 30% of our 60 active participants are on scholarship. So anyway, back to this story. We let them come in. I knew it was going to be a tough decision, but it really wasn't. We let them in. And lo and behold, about a year later, I got a phone call from a man that said he was in Memphis, Tennessee. And they wanted to give our respite ministry a grant. And I said, oh, that's great. I've never written a grant. So is this going to be like, $1,000, $10,000, $15,000? And he said, no, I want you to dream big. I want you to dream big. I said, okay, let me do that. So by the end of it, after about a month, I wrote a grant for $100,000. Long story short, turned it in, sent it to Memphis. I had no idea who these people were. Was headed to a conference in New Orleans. I got a call, and the lady from the place in Memphis, she said, I want to tell you right now, we're going to give you $25,000. And this was on a Monday. And I said, wow, that is awesome. $25,000. That's amazing. Kind of go through the steps. And I said, if you don't mind me asking, was there a reason why y'all didn't choose to write the rest of that grant? to get up to 100,000. And she said, well, at this time, we just want to support your local ministry. I had been asking for money to help start new ones across the Southeast. So I said, okay, that's great. Well, I was happy. By the end of the week, I'm coming home from New Orleans, driving along, and I get a phone call from the lady, and she says, you are not going to believe this. Daphne, we're actually going to give you $100,000. And I said, what? What happened? What happened? How'd that happen? She said, you know, the benefactors of our grant and our foundation wound up in UAB neurology, and they heard about your ministry from the neurologist in Birmingham, which is an hour and a half away from us. And the guy said, just give her all the money. Give it all to her. Well, the moral of the story was that was great. But come to find out, this was a nephew of the bankrupted family that we had let in our ministry. We didn't care. We don't care what people's names are. We don't care what you got. We just know we've got volunteers that want to serve and come alongside people. So I beg you, accept anybody that you physically in your building can accept, because you just never know what good story is going to come out of that. That was a long story. Sorry. Okay, last one. Always develop new opportunities. So once I got my volunteer pool together, I wanted them working. I put some of them off on really trying to create activities for us, art projects. I sent some on an art training. I sent some to begin the support group for the care partners. You can find different avenues for people to serve. So here again, we received a huge check, almost as big as that grant money, because there was one lady who was really rather reserved. She had never participated in volunteering in a big group, but because she got to do one special thing, she was in charge of serving the food. She was so connected to our ministry because she got to be with the people, and that's the job that she felt comfortable with doing. Sometimes I see ministries draw the line so black and white. You know, if you volunteer, you have to do this. If you volunteer, you have to do that. I encourage you to create gray space, because if this lady had not felt comfortable in doing what she did, I think their donation funded the Respite Ministry for almost 2 years. So I encourage you, create gray space, comfort zones for your volunteers. I hope that helps. Doris, I hope y'all can send out that worksheet. So I want to leave you with this. I think this video can wrap up anybody that's in ministry, and I think most of you guys are. And then maybe we'll have time for a little question and answer. But this guy is speaking to us today on knowing your why. Because the logistics, the money, the people, the space, they're all going to come if we know our why, right? You know your why.
How do I know? A lot of people, when they think of the phrase, how do I know, they always want to put the what behind it. How do I know what I'm supposed to do? The question that you really should ask is, how do I know why I'm here? Because when you know your why, your what becomes more clear and more impactful. If you know, like for instance, people know that I do comedy, but that's what I do. My why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. So I can do comedy, I can write books, I can be in a movie, because all of it is motivated by my why. In fact, I have a new web series out called Michael Jr. Break Time. We probably just did the 6th episode. It's on YouTube. So every single Wednesday at 3:00, we drop a new episode on YouTube of Michael Jr. Break Time. What it is it's me. I travel around the country and I do stand-up comedy, in case you didn't know. And in the middle of my comedy set sometime, I'll stop and just talk to my audience. And we've been filming this, and it's pretty cool. So we're in Winston-Salem. I'm going to show you a clip from Winston-Salem. And I'm just talking to this guy in the audience, and he tells me that he's a musical instructor at a school. So I was like, all right, you're a musical instructor. Can you sing? Let me hear you sing a song. So this is what happened at the last episode of Michael Jr.'s Break Time. Check it. So you're a musical director. Yes, sir. All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Wow. That bro could sing. You know what I'm saying? All right. Now, what you give me the version is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick. If you know which version I'm talking about, just see if that exists. Let me see what you got. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Right now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. Okay. Here's what I want you to catch. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what becomes more impactful because you're walking towards or in your purpose.
How great was that? Oh, I hope y'all enjoyed it. I love getting to share that clip. I hope that you guys will look us up on our webpage, Reclaiming Joy Together. The webpage is www.respiteforall.org. And if I've got time, Doris, I think I've got a little bit of time. I want to show you this website because it's got a 1, 2, 3 map to how to build a respite ministry just like ours. And I want to show you where the map is. Okay. So if you'll go up to begin a chapter, start a respite, this is the map that's going to pop up. Before I had the idea for the foundation, I knew people were asking, you know, I want you guys to see what all goes into building a respite ministry. And then we've got trainings. People come to Alabama. I fly anywhere. I'm flying to Orlando next week to open one there. Got a call to California and Sonoma Valley next week as well. But you can kind of go through these steps. If you think you've got a local church in your area that would be willing to look at this, of course, after the vaccine, of course, after COVID. But you know what? We found it takes 6 months to a year to even identify a good, great director in your church space. But think how many people are going to want to come out of isolation, living with dementia and Alzheimer's. So if you've got any thoughts or any local resources, just look this up, go through this, and you can kind of see the blueprint that we used. All right, Doris, that's all I got, girl.
I can't see that, Daphne. Whatever you put up, I do not see. I think you need to share your screen.
Oh, why did you not say that before?
Well,
I'm going to put it right back up. I'm going to go to the share screen thing is over the webpage. Sorry. There it is. I'm sorry, guys. Y'all were just staring at me. Okay. So respiteforall.org. If you go up to begin a chapter, start a respite, this is what you're going to find. This is the map and the blueprint. What kind of space it'll take, how to have a conversation, with your clergy, logistics to consider, food, where would you get that, director possibilities. All of these things have been honed in over the past 8 years. So it's all right here. You can call me. You can use this, do whatever you want to. But the book really coincides with this and explains the mindset and really how to get people on board. All right.
Okay. Thank you so much, Daphne.
Uh-huh.
Okay. You guys can hear me, right? Somebody can hear me?
I think everybody's on mute.
We can hear you, yes.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Daphne. I'm always inspired in that video that you showed last, the Amazing Grace video. Well, that gave me goosebumps. So I want you all to unmute your phones. If you have questions or if you have comments, or I know we have some of our Respite Ministry providers on the phone. If you would like to share your story with Daphne, she soaks up stories like a sponge. And so I'm hoping that there are folks who want to chat with her. Otherwise, I will come up with a couple questions on your behalf.
This is Sherry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Oh, good. Finally got my mic to work on my headset I got. Hallelujah. Daphne, that was fantastic. And I'm Sherry Pomeroy. I lead, before the pandemic, a program called Open Door at the Orchard Park Presbyterian Church. And like you said, the inspiration came from a family member and the person I co-lead with as well. And we had no difficulty recruiting volunteers. I mean, we used a lot of the strategies you suggested. I had never thought of doing a community event other than sending cards. So I really liked those suggestions. Those were great. So my question is, we had to shut down like in March, like I had to cancel on that Monday. And my volunteers, I don't know, I feel like everybody kind of shrank, into their own spaces. And I have other responsibilities as well. I'm the faith community nurse at the church, and I still do some research and things like that. So with the time that I had, I tried to do what I could, as well as with my co-leader who since has moved elsewhere, but she's been really helpful. But I guess I'm wondering, what I'm getting to is that I'm wondering how long will it take to rebuild this? I know you say people will want to come back out, and we have been in touch with some of our folks and offered things through the Alzheimer's Association, who is our partner now with our program, different things, sending resources, trying to keep in touch. A couple of our members have passed away in the past few months. And myself, really, I have to say I experienced a lot of grief over the end of this program. We did it once a month. It was the highlight of my life, seeing the magic that happens in these programs. So any comment you have on those topics?
I want to send you, I'm going to send to my email so I can share screen. So, so you had a dementia respite that you did once a month?
Yes, and it was open to anyone. We had just two people who were actually members of our church. Otherwise, they're all community members. And we had built up to, we usually had about 10 participants per month.
Great. 10 was my first aim. And
right.
It's such a great number. Oh, I hate it. I'm telling you, I felt like I went through a death, and it was hard to talk about it because you got people losing their jobs. You got people dying, and I'm sitting over here saying, golly, we've just got this great ministry, and I'm sitting at home. So I felt like I couldn't even really talk about it. We really got into high gear trying to figure out, I don't know the volunteer pool you've got, but we got into high gear just trying to figure out how to keep people connected, number one. But right now, we've been meeting outside, and I know you guys are in snow and all that good kind of stuff. I just want to show you, Sherry, this is going to give you hope for what's to come. I know you said.
Well, one of the issues we have is our church building we have strict restrictions even for outside at this point at our church.
Okay. But maybe in the spring or after the vaccine or what have you. So I think anybody on the outside would look at this and say, oh my gosh, there's all those people. Look at that's just a COVID connector kind of thing. But the people that are together are men, they're husband and wife, right? They're 6 feet apart, they're masked. I just had a bluegrass band that came out at 5 o'clock one afternoon, and I invited all the Respite families to come. We've averaged this size crowd every Wednesday from 10 to 11:30. They normally don't sit this close together, but every Wednesday, 10 to 11:30, we come outside, and I've got a big Bose speaker that we play music, and we do whiteboard talk, and we have found a way to do bingo. We cleanse everything. That's another story. I show you all this stuff to give you hope, because what we've kind of evolved into is the memory cafe model right now, where the caregivers come, they don't just drop their person off.
Yes, I'm familiar with that.
Okay, so they come and they have thoroughly enjoyed it. So to maybe be outside in the spring, and maybe it doesn't have to be on your church grounds. Like, we put this idea out there, we've got a great park in front of our church, but the Savannah people, there was a park around the marina that was like 10 miles away from their church. They found a way to meet outside, and the greatest thing is we just tell the people to bring their own pop-up chairs, bring their mask. There's no food, there's no way. They have control of where they sit, and we've just made it a memory cafe model. I would think it's probably a year and a half away until we can meet again in the church. I don't know. It's sad. But I got Orlando saying that they want me to come and do the training in the fellowship hall, and they want to open in January. I can't imagine. But there are many daycares that have been like emergency medical or whatever, and I know there's several in Atlanta that they come in their mask. And the Alzheimer's person doesn't have their mask, but the staff does. So I think there'll be ways. I just don't know that it'll be immediate. I hope that helps, but I hope you can see where a memory cafe could come into play, just to have something to look forward to once a month, you know?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And that's kind of what I've been trying to envision and what I'm trying to gear up for, so that in the next few months we can really be ready when we're able to do some of those things. But unfortunately, we had a transition at our church with the pastor, and right at the time of the pandemic. So it's just made negotiating a little bit more difficult. But I think that volunteers seem to be coming out a little bit out of their, there seems to be more contact now. So I think it's a time people will be more inside because of our weather. Maybe they'll have more time to donate, to think about how we can do outreach during this time.
One group in Atlanta, they bought pumpkins, and actually it was in Dothan. They're going to decorate, the volunteers all sponsored a pumpkin, and they're painting it, and then they're going to go put it on their caregivers' porches. Sherry, I would love for you to get on our director email list if you want to see
Sure.
emails. But what I wanted to do with this foundation was not have cut and dried, you have to pay to be in it, there's bylaws to follow. I just wanted it to be a grassroots movement in the faith community, because you typically have free space, and you typically have a lot of people that want to help, right? So how can we partner that together? And I just wanted us to have kind of a clearinghouse where we could all share ideas and do things. So I'd love to get you on anybody on our director email, and y'all can take what you want.
That'd be great. And my goal really is, when we can be together again, is to offer it more often.
Yeah.
Which would be fantastic. So thank you so much. That was really helpful. Did you say you're in Fairhope, Alabama?
No, I researched a program.
Oh, okay.
In Montgomery. It was 3 hours away.
Okay. I have a really good friend. All her family are in Fairhope, Alabama, and she's one of the volunteers who does so I can't wait to tell her that you went there. Okay. Thank you. I'll let someone else talk. Thank you so much. Your information was fantastic. And thank you, Doris.
And thank you, Sherry, for coming on and sharing your thoughts. Jesse, do you want to unmute? You have a couple of questions, and I want to introduce Jesse. And Daphne, Jesse started a program in a college setting using students in a dementia respite. So, and that program was going strong until COVID, of course. But Jesse, why don't you just unmute and share your thoughts?
Awesome, thank you. So nice to meet you, Daphne. I feel like I've heard so much about you, so it's nice to hear you speak and share your thoughts. And I just wrote a comment in that, you know, these past many months, hearing you all speak has definitely been a challenge with respite work. So just being reminded and hearing these stories that there are so many people working hard to stay connected and keep it going, of course, in a safe, helpful way, is just been reinvigorating for me. So thank you for that. My one question was, do you have any advice for small rural churches who don't necessarily have the funding nor the volume of participants to support a paid coordinator? You know, what have you seen with just volunteer-led programs? Any advice there?
I'm glad you asked, because we have got the gamut. We've got people that have a volunteer director. We've got people with paid director, part-time, all that kind of stuff. So one thing I do want to interject is there is a program in South Florida called it's like Brain Matters, Brain Talk, but they have a director, and they're in like a Methodist church, but they use 3 to 4 college students for their respite program. So they go like a semester.
Awesome.
And they use the college students for their volunteers. And she was just floored that I could get as many baby boomers as I have, but the baby boomers don't have schedules. They've got babysitting schedules, but other than that, they can kind of plan better than college. But we've added college volunteers because of her. So hats off to you. Probably the smallest director I have, position-wise, would be in Demopolis, Alabama, and it is very, very, very tiny. And I think that they pay her hourly. There's not a salary or anything. That has worked out well because they just meet once a week. There's probably an opportunity that if somebody could just get it going, like go through the hoops to get it organized, to get it going, that other people would catch on. One of the toughest problems I've got for startups is the participants. We know there's 1,000 million dementia folks out there. They really don't understand the concept of volunteer respite. I really faced a lot of challenges because I only started with 2. I thought, man, I've got the best medicine in the world. Why are you guys not coming? So it's kind of the chicken before the egg, or whatever you say when you say that. You got to get the participants to get a decent director involved. And you don't even really have to have the paid director. You just have to have somebody that's dedicated enough to see it through, where you can grow from 2 participants to 5. You know, 5 or 6 is a great little number. The country churches that we have, they either pay by the hour, and then there's one set up right now where the director is volunteer, but it's just, I think it's too much to ask a volunteer to do a weekly program. If you did it once or twice a month, I think you could probably build better from that. I hope Sherry might agree with that.
Awesome. Yeah, super helpful. And then also good to hear. I think probably a lot of us have experienced the situations where, yeah, it's like we have a great structure set up, and then getting participants, you know, it's can take a while, but it's, you know, as you're saying, it's so worth it once people start getting connected.
In the book, okay, y'all, remember the book. Not about the money, it's about the stories in here that's going to inspire you. But there was one lady at the beginning, I learned so much from her. She did not want to let that man go. And the lady that I learned from, she was like, well, you can't have a caregiver stay. You know, they need to take a break. They need to leave. And so there was black and white lines. But I thought, this lady doesn't know me. She doesn't know any of these people or volunteer programs. So I'm just going to let her stay. So she stayed. She learned to trust us. And 2 weeks later, she finally said, you know, she starts crying, and she was like, I'm going to go. I'm going to leave Jack. I'm going to leave him with you and these people. And Jack couldn't talk. He had Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. He could not communicate. But as soon as she said that, she was like, Jack, I'm coming back. I am coming back for you at 2:00. And Jack goes, goodbye. He was so thankful to be away from Sweet Mary that we have to tell those stories to the participants' families, because it's either they have too much guilt, they don't understand how much you can offer. I think guilt is a big thing, or that a volunteer can do what we do. But Jack could not wait to get rid of her. And if we remind our families and our participants that, have you ever thought, Mary, that he needed a break from you? Sometimes we've been able to get a lot of participants in that way. So just remember that trip. All right, Doris is texting me something. I don't know. Any other questions? Sherry's back.
Sorry, I lost, my phone decided to go on to put in your password and I couldn't unmute. Jesse, you had a second question. Are you, Sherry, do you want to share that?
I just said at the beginning, because we really, I mean, our church did help with the budget, but our town is 40,000 and it is a south town of Buffalo, New York, but we're closer to the more rural areas. And Jess, I've lived in Quincy, Illinois, so I know rural. And I found I could get free advertising by just having it listed in events in our local paper called the Orchard Park Bee. And I reached out to all the faith communities, everything I could do, any faith community to put in their bulletin and newsletter, and then word of mouth. And then the Alzheimer's Association has the sustainability funds that helped us. And then people did start to donate. Just like you said, Daphne, one day, a gentleman whose wife had been referred to us by another church member. And she was only in the program a few months before she passed away, but he just handed me a check one day, you know, as he was leaving. So, and then we put together a discretionary fund, and we had another person whose dad passed away and they made us one of their donations.
Yeah.
So you're right, it happens.
Keep the addresses, but let me tell you one trick that I would probably not share with my senior pastor. I learned that when your families come up to you and they say, golly, this ministry's just saved our life. I would do anything for you. This has just saved our life, blah, blah, blah. I said, would you do me a favor and write that and write it to our senior pastor? And in your note, thank the congregation of First United Methodist Church. Everything's true. They want to help you. They don't know how they can help you the most, but when you get a letter, a senior pastor, from somebody in the community, because this congregation had the forethought and wanted to be community leaders, those letters get read from the pulpit a lot, and it gets you a lot of support from the upper clergy. So when people tell you that they just appreciate you so much, just say, could you do me a favor? Could you write that down? Could you share that with somebody influential? Because you just never know where that winds up.
Thanks, Daphne. I also want to say that we have just released mini grants. So if you have not gotten a copy of the request for proposal, because they are for up to $10,000, they are requesting creative ways to address respite in COVID and beyond. And I would encourage any of the faith communities who are on the call to really take a good hard look at that. There were some great ideas in Daphne's presentation about creative ways to provide respite and support for caregivers. Just before the call, she was telling me about her Christmas trees. You want to tell a Christmas tree story, Daphne?
Yeah, this is great. A couple of years ago, we had a guy, he was coming to get his wife from respite, and I said, okay, have you got your tree up yet? And he said, no, I'm too tired. We're not doing that this year. And it made me sad, and I didn't really think about it. But at the end of the day, everybody came back, and I asked 4 or 5 care partners, and I said, have you got your tree up yet? And they said, no, we don't do that anymore. It's just too much trouble. So I tucked that thought away, and this year, now through COVID, we normally spend a good amount of money on a volunteer luncheon at the end of every year, and that's another really good way to grow your program. We had somebody underwrite the luncheon every year, a doctor or whoever, one of our participant families. That's another one. If a family says, how can I help you? Say, it'd be great if we could sponsor a luncheon for our volunteers. Well, I told Doris that instead of paying the money for that volunteer luncheon this year, we bought 58 Christmas trees. And we bought 58 3-foot trees. We got them at Hobby Lobby for like 50% off. And I think you can get them on Amazon for like $12 to $14. You might want to find 2-foot trees. But then we asked all of our volunteers to adopt a tree. We're not paying for the decorations. We're not paying for what goes on it. But anybody that wants to help, and what we have to remember in the community when we talk is, if you've been affected by Alzheimer's and dementia and you want to give back in some way, come help us with this Christmas tree drive. So we've got all of our volunteers adopting a tree to decorate however they want to. And on December the 1st, they're going to bring them back to our park outside. And if it's raining, they're going to bring them back to the sanctuary. We'll have one indoor space that's large, fellowship hall that's fairly safe. And we've got a delivery team of people lined up that are going to deliver the Christmas trees. So those are kind of things that you would learn on our list. So I'll be more than happy to share that stuff with you guys.
That's awesome. Is there anybody else who would like to share their story or challenges or joys with Daphne?
Hi, I'm Kim Lyons. I am an outreach here at the Living Well mission, kind of umbrellaed under the United Methodist Church in Yates County, New York. I also pastor 2 of those small rural churches, so definitely get the funding part. But we started Pulse Place 2 years ago now, and are now located in throughout Yates County, 3 different locations that would meet once a month. And then we had a 4th location that did like the memory care cafe. So invited those families to come have coffee and conversation. So I just want to thank you. It was your enthusiasm and stuff that drew in. And I think you're really refueling in me how we've been keeping our distance to keep everybody safe. But just the ideas, and we've been sending note cards and checking in, but these little steps can give those volunteers that keep asking, when can we meet again? When can we start? And they all know the answer. They know that it's not safe and a good idea. Yet this is offering up that opportunity for themselves to be going from that being isolated to doing something in the community. So I love the opportunity that we are giving to those small rural churches, and it helps that I'm kind of overseeing the program in all of those. But these small churches that don't feel like they can compete with the bigger congregations in the neighborhood, or feel like they can really, be worthwhile, are discovering the impact by opening their doors and their fellowship areas to what they can do. And that has just been so cool to see. And it's not a denomination, it's not a United Methodist Church thing. It is the faith communities just getting involved together to making it happen. So it's super cool to see progress.
That's right. Well, I don't know how, when y'all have snow, when you're saying this, is there any possible way y'all can do porch visits?
Absolutely. And I don't know why, because I'm doing that for my own outreach within my congregation. So I don't know why it didn't occur to me in the matter of being able to do, this connection. We've talked about some of our other support groups through the Living Well are doing Zoom, but our caregivers just don't have the energy or, in the most part, the technology to be able to do that.
That's right.
But gosh, my volunteers would love to go out for a drive and be able to leave, a blessing on somebody's porch, or put their own eyes on, one of our guests that they are missing.
The pumpkin idea in Dothan, they were going to paint a Bible verse on the pumpkin and leave it on the porch. And over the summer, we got fresh baskets of blueberries and whatever was at the farmer's market and just left on the porches. But, we have found that they will come out in a carport. They will, you can have plenty of distance. 10 or 15, 20 feet. But when you see somebody out there in 10 umbrellas out in the middle of nowhere in the country, my place in Eufaula, Alabama, they're a tiny, tiny church too. It's amazing what it does for everybody. It just reinvigorates everything. So yes, I'm glad you feel that way.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're You're welcome. And y'all can find me. Y'all look to find Respite Ministry on Facebook. I've not done a very good on the foundation page, but if you look at the Respite Ministry Facebook page, I've got a private Facebook page for respite leaders, and there's probably 40 of us on there. And what we've all been doing is just taking pictures of all the things that we're doing with the porch visits or the pumpkins or the berries or the whatever. And we just post it on that respite leader page. But if you find, if you'll send me a note, I can add you to that. That's the best way to see something really quick. But find Respite Ministry in Montgomery, Alabama, and I post happenings all the time from all the different programs.
And if you want to be inspired in the future when Daphne's not on your computer live, if you just Google Daphne Johnston, she comes up, and there are a ton of videos that are very inspiring and uplifting, and you could go there anytime to just, get a little juice if you need it, right? So
I'll give you one parting shot. This is how God works. It's so cool. So I Google all the time dementia programs, speakers, this, that, and the other. And if I'm on my phone or on a walk, I'm always listening to something, because you just got to keep new information in your mind, because you don't want to just say the same old thing. All right, so I find this slideshow of a professor that is at a conference in Ireland, and I don't know, her slides just matched everything that I say about respite. So I just emailed that professor in Ireland, and I was like, hey, my name is Daphne. This is my program, blah, blah, blah. Well, lo and behold, she was a professor from Australia. And she started digging into me and what all we were doing. And she invited me to go to Australia last October to share the respite volunteer model. And now it's going to be a published paper. But I did 8 airports by myself to get all the way to Australia and back, because I left my husband with the kids. My board paid for it. But that's what happens when you can share ideas. Like, had I not seen her slides and her presentation, I would never have known to do that. So good things happen when we share things. And I always want to be known for giving it away. We don't want money. It's too good. We just got to share it. So I hope y'all will have that same motto.
that's funny, because I have a memory of that day. I was at a park with my granddaughter, and my phone rings, and Daphne's name comes up. She goes, "Get what, y'all? I'm going to Australia." I was laughing so hard. But like I said, she's world renowned now. So, and I'm getting better with my Alabama accent. I use it all the time in my speeches, Daphne. Okay.
We entertain you. We're here to help you. Well, anyway, I'll get with Doris and get my email, get my phone number if you need it, and give me a call anytime. But you guys matter. You're making a difference, and you got to keep it up. New material, new ideas, all about it. Am I good?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Daphne. We're good.
Love what y'all are doing.
Unless anyone has anything else, last chance.
Are we all going to
All
get
right.
the book, or do we need to ask for the book?
I'm going to send an email out right after this, right after we end the presentation, and you can respond with your mailing address, and I will get it out to you.
Fantastic. Daphne, thank you so
Okay.
much for the energy and the inspiration, and for everyone on the call.
You guys were the same. Farewell. and
Ditto.
I'll get
Awesome.
an email from you guys.
We're going to get you back here live, Daphne. Count on it.
Good deal.
Okay.
I'll be there.
All right. Have
Bye.
a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doris.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, how did you join today?